That's what the Mishnah had stated. And the Gemara had a question on why is there only 20, why is there only 8? Why isn't there 9? So if you look on the Gemara on the bottom of the page, Amar Rava, you have the article is 21b3. Amar Rava. So Rava is coming to address that there should, why isn't there, when you plow on Yom Tov, the Gemara had asked the question, the plowing on Yom Tov, two things are happening. There is the Harisha, there is the plowing that's happening, which is a malacha on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to plow on Yom Tov, right, Netanel? You can't take your plow and plow on Yom Tov, that's a malacha. But there's another malacha called sowing the ground, making things grow, planting. And we said in the Gemara, we said that when you cover klayim, we said when you cover mixed seeds, what happens is, by the way, Yaron, could you send to the group that we are on our old
Rabbi, right now.
Our old link, and maybe share the link back with the group, the old link, so they should know that's the link that we are on. Okay, thank you very much. Got to make it very clear so we won't have any technical difficulties. So the Gemara had a question: when you do the act of harisha, when you do the act of plowing, you are doing two malachot in that one act. What are the two malachot? One, you're plowing. Two, you are helping the things grow, and that's another malacha called, because there was another malacha called zriyah, a planting, meaning to say if there were seeds in the ground. See, a lot of times you could do the malacha of plowing. You know, they would plow the ground before they would plant, right? What would they do? You got to soften the ground. You want to put in the seeds. So you plow the ground. So that in itself is not zriyah. It's not. We're not going to give him two violations for that plowing, because at this moment you didn't plant any seeds, right? It's just the plowing was preparing the job, right? You prepared the job, but you didn't do the malacha of planting yet. You just prepared the job for planting. That's the preparation. That's not planting. That's not growing. However, you know what? Maybe you plowed the ground because you wanted to build a building, right? It's not, you wanted to put a new dirt there, whatever it might have been, a new foundation. So you plowed the ground, you loosen up the soil, you wanted to dig deeper. It's not sowing. Plowing itself, before any seeds, it's not sowing. But once you have the seeds in the ground, and then you plow the ground and you cover up the seeds with the earth, covering the seeds with the earth, with the soil, helps it grow. So that would be the malacha of zerayah, of planting. So the Gemara says, why don't we say in the Mishnah, why does the Mishnah, if the Mishnah talks about klayim bekerem, the Mishnah is talking about that you're covering the seeds through the plowing, so you should be violating two prohibitions, both the prohibition of plowing on Yom Tov and also the prohibition of planting, helping it grow on Yom Tov. So that's the Gemara's question. So what do you say, Mr. Haber? The question is, why do we only count 8? Right. There's two different tickets. The cop can give you 2 tickets for this act. You violated the prohibition of plowing, and you violated the prohibition of planting, of sowing. So why does the Mishnah, when the Mishnah states the prohibitions, the Mishnah only counts 8? I mean, really, you could count. If you want to sit over there, because that seat is available, so I'll get a better picture of you. So why are you counting only 8? So this is a technical question that you should be counting 9. You should call it 9 violations. The 2 are not counted as 2. The Mishnah only counted them as 1. They didn't count. So the Mishnah would seem to have been counting the plowing. Did not, you know, the Mishnah just said, it didn't identify what was the malacha. It just said you plowed on Yom Tov. And the plowing on Yom Tov, I think the Rivan, like the commentary on the Mishnah says, that is charisha. The violation is because you plowing. Yeah, Rashi says, Rivon says, the Yom Tov, he says, you did Charisha. The malacha that was identified, the violation was for plowing. But why isn't there a violation for planting? That's the Gemara's question. But we're saying you covered the seeds with it, and therefore we're saying that's why you were violating the prohibition of kalayim, of mixing seeds, right? Even though you didn't mix the seeds itself, but the fact that you did this act that helps it grow, we're gonna identify this as an act of planting mixed seeds, right? What does the Torah say? Don't plant mixed seeds. And we say by covering the mixed seeds, it's like you planted the mixed seeds because you're helping the growth. So if that's the case when it comes to Kalayim, that should also be the case when it comes to Yom Tov. It should also be the case when it comes to the Malacha of planting on Yom Tov. You planted. That's the Gemara's question. But regarding Kalayim, you consider it you planted. So if regarding Kalayim, regarding the prohibition of mixing seeds, it's considered planting. So regarding the prohibition of doing work on Yom Tov, planting on Yom Tov, if you call it planting there regarding mixing seeds, it should be called planting regarding Yom Tov. So why don't we give a violation for planting on Yom Tov by plowing the ground over the seeds? Mr. Safdie, is it clear what the Gemara's question is?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yaron, is it clear? Okay, so that's the Gemara's question.
You're gonna get 9 set of classes, right?
They're gonna get 9 instead of 8. That's the Gemara's question. You get 9 sets instead of 8. So the Gemara says the following. Amar Rava. So Rava comes to the rescue. Rava comes to answer this question. Everyone have Amar Rava? The art scroll is 21b3 on the bottom right. And in the regular Gemaras, it's about 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Rava. Yesh chiluk melachot b'Shabbat ve'ein chiluk melachot b'Yom Tov. There is such a thing called chiluk melachot by Shabbat, that by Shabbat and Yom Tov, things work differently. On Shabbat, if let's say a guy knows it's Shabbat, he knows today is Shabbat, he knows Shabbat, but he doesn't know that he can't plow, he can't plant on Shabbat. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know about the laws of Shabbat. He knows on Shabbat we make kiddush on Shabbat. He doesn't know the laws that you can't. He thinks the Shabbat you take a rest, you sleep on Shabbat, but he thinks you could do malacha. He thinks you could put on a fire, you can make it coffee. He thinks you could go ahead and cook up some water for Shabbat. So and then he goes ahead and he cooks the coffee. He makes a fire. So he violated bishul. He cooked. He made a fire. He did a lot of malachot. So he's going to be obligated a separate korban chatat. There's a sin offering for a person who violates the Shabbat unintentionally. You knew it was Shabbat, but I didn't know the thing was forbidden. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do it. So he has to bring a korban. And he has to bring a korban for each and every malacha that he violated. He didn't know this was forbidden. He didn't know that was forbidden. He didn't know that was forbidden. He has to bring a separate korban for each act. Now, regarding Yom Tov, the punishment for violating Yom Tov is not a punishment. You see, in order to bring a korban for doing so unintentionally, if you did it intentionally, the sin will have to be at least a karet or above. A sin that's karet will be cut off from the next world. If it's done intentionally or death by the court, unintentionally gets a korban chata. But Yom Tov, which the punishment is not cut off from the next world for violating the Yom Tov, there's no korban chatat for violating the Yom Tov unintentionally. But if a person violates the Yom Tov, if he does one act and he violates the Yom Tov, what's the punishment for Yom Tov for doing malacha on Yom Tov? Lashes. For Shabbat, If a person intentionally violates the Shabbat, there's no lashes. There's death penalty for Shabbat. And when there's death penalty, there's no lashes, right? We said that when the prohibition is given to tell you to warn a person about death, it's not coming to warn a person about lashes on Shabbat. Yom Tov, the prohibition, don't do malacha on Yom Tov, is coming to warn the person about lashes. That's because there's no punishment of death. There's no death penalty, no capital punishment for violating Yom Tov. Being that's the case, the Gemara says that even though we have this phenomenon, that when it comes to Shabbat, there's something called chiluk malacha. Each action we weigh separately, and he has to bring a separate korban, a separate sin offering for every sin he did unintentionally that he didn't know that was forbidden to do. He didn't know it was forbidden to do that malacha. But Yom Tov does not have that halacha. Yom Tov does not have the halacha that we split up the different acts, the different violations that he did. If he did one act, and in that one act there was multiple violations, he will only have to get one set of lashes by Yom Tov. And therefore, that's Rava's answer. Rava's answer is this one act of covering the plowing the field and covering the seeds on Yom Tov. You cannot give him two violations of Yom Tov for that one act. You could give him a violation of Kilayim for that act. You can give him the violation of Shemitah, that he worked the field on Shemitah. You give him a violation for working on Yom Tov. But regarding Yom Tov, you only could give him a ticket for one violation on Yom Tov. You can't give him a multi-violation and what you want to do is you want to give him multi sets of lashes. You want to give him two sets of lashes for this one act. You got it, Netanel? You wanted to give him two sets of lashes for this one act of intentionally. After being warned, he intentionally plowed the field. And you want to tell him, hey, there's two violations happening in this one act. There's a violation of plowing on Yom Tov, and there's a violation of planting on Yom Tov. So we can't give on Yom Tov the concept of giving multi-punishments for two violations that are happening at the same time, at one time, one act. We don't split it and give him two tickets to give him two punishments. Maybe there's two tickets.
And if you was shogeg, Rabbi,
punishment. He did two sins, but the two sins only carry, when it's done simultaneously, they only carry with it one punishment of lash. That's what the Gemara said.
Rabbi, there's no difference if you are shogeg or mezid, so.
Okay, so, but we're talking about when it comes to Yom Tov, we're talking, and our Gemara is talking about mezid. Because we're talking about lashes, it's only when a guy is intentional. By Yom, and therefore the Gemara is saying we cannot give the guy two sets of lashes for two violations of Yom Tov that come simultaneously. By Yom Tov, there's no karban for unintentional sin on Yom Tov. Because since if he intentionally sinned, it does not carry the punishment of parade, so the unintentional sin does not bring chatat. When the Torah tells us the laws that a person who violates certain sins unintentionally, he has to bring a karma chatat, that's only if it's a type of sin, it's a very high level sin, that if he would do it intentionally, he would get karet or more. But if he would do it intentionally, the punishment would be lashes. So there's no korban, there's no sin offering for a sin that carries with it the punishment of lashes if it's done intentionally. For doing it unintentionally, he does not bring a korban. Is that clear? Netano, is that clear? Yaron, you hear that? So therefore, when we're talking about Yom Tov, we're talking about the lashes, the malkut of Yom Tov. That is the punishment for violating Yom Tov intentionally. Yaron, you sent to the group, correct? Everybody's good in the group. No one's asking for anything, right? Okay. So that was Rava's response. That's why we did not count number 9, Mr. Abel. We can't count number 9 because you can't give him multi lashes for one act on Yom Tov. So Amalei, so when he heard this response, when Ula heard this response, he says, Adat Tehei. This is a very good reason of the Mishnah. This is the reason why the Mishnah does not list plowing and sowing, plowing and planting as to count it as two instead of one, is because we do not, on Yom Tov, we do not combine the two acts to make it double lashes. Okay, good morning, Nisan. Okay, now the Gemara continues. Eitive Abaye. We are now, good morning, Michael. Welcome. Good morning, Michael. We are on 21b4, and we are on the bottom of the page in the Hebrew side. Eitive Abaye. 3 lines from the bottom. Abaye asked the following question. Abaye is going to challenge the statement that we just said. We just said that we said that when it comes to Yom Tov, if a person does 2 violations, 2 sins, intentionally, with one act, when he violated, he's a creative guy, right? He did 2 sins in one act, 2 malachot on one act. He's not going to get 2 sets of lashes on Yom Tov. We don't split the malacha to give him separate lashes on malacha, on Yom Tov. So the Gemara says, but regarding Shabbat, we said if he does unintentionally multi violations in one act, we would split each act to give him a separate korban chatat. But when it comes to Yom Tov, regarding lashes, we don't split each malacha, each act of working which was violated in one action to give him 2 sets of lashes. So the Gemara says, Eitive. I'll ask you a question. Eitive Abaye. Ve'ein chiluk malachot b'Yom Tov. You're telling me if a person did one act, and in that one act he violated 2 prohibitions of the Torah, two prohibitions of Yom Tov. 2, right? Yom Tov has many prohibitions, right? The same 39 many of them. We do have an allowance to cook on Yom Tov for the needs of Yom Tov. We do have a right to carry on Yom Tov for the needs of for a need. There are, some of the malachot that are forbidden on Shabbat are permitted on Yom Tov under certain circumstances. But in general, the malacha on Yom Tov is most of the prohibitions that I can't do on Yom. I can't plow on Yom Tov. I can't plant on Yom Tov. I can't make a fire on Yom Tov. I create a fire on Yom Tov. There are many things on Yom Tov that I'm not allowed to do. Part of the malachot. From an existing fire, I can make a fire from an existing fire. Correct. So now the Gemara says, "Ve'en chiluk malachot b'Yom Tov." There's no separation and giving a person a separate lashes for each and every violation of Yom Tov. If he did multi malachot, multi acts of violating Yom Tov in one act, we do not give him separate sets of lashes. We learned in the Mishnah, Hamevashel gid b'chalav b'Yom Tov. If someone cooks a gid, as you know, the gid hanosher, the story with Yaakov and the Malach, when Yaakov fought with the Malach of Esav, and when the angel of Esav saw that he could not defeat Yaakov, so what did the angel of Esav do? He hit Yaakov on the thigh, and that sciatic nerve moved from its socket. And the Torah says, I want you to remember the story, and and therefore the Jewish people never will eat. You don't eat the sciatic nerve. You're not allowed to eat that sciatic.
No more filet mignon. No filet mignon for us.
Okay, and
that's what it is.
And that sciatic nerve, and some want to say that the reason is to remember the miracle. You remember the miracle that Yaakov was not killed by the angel. That's how some understand why the Torah wants us to remember the story. You can't eat this, like we don't by Pesach. We don't eat chametz. We remember the miracle that we came out of Mitzrayim. There was no time for it to become chametz. So that's one. It has to do with the act of Yaakov being hit by the angel. And exactly what's the reason why? What is the reason why we have to? What are we remembering? So that's the matter of discussion. But we're remembering that act, Yaakov getting hit from the Malach of Esav, and the sciatic nerve moving. So the Torah says we're not allowed to eat that gid hanosher. We're not allowed to eat that. Now there's a discussion in the Gemara Chulin. Does that sciatic nerve doesn't have such great taste? It's something that's, do you look at it like meat as well? Do you classify it as something that really gives off a taste or not? Is it considered also meat? Does it have a status of meat or it doesn't have a status of meat? So this Mishnah takes the opinion that this sciatic nerve has also the status of meat. Yesh begidim benosim tam. It has the status of meat. So if you go in and you cook this gid, this sciatic nerve with milk, this Mishnah says you'll be violating the prohibition of lo savasho gidi b'chalev imo. We're not allowed to cook meat and dairy together, right? I can't go ahead and make a hamburger with cheese and cook the hamburger and cheese together. That is a violation of cooking meat and dairy together. So if he went ahead and he cooked the sciatic nerve together with milk, so he's violating the prohibition of cooking meat and milk together. That carries with it lashes, malchut. If a person today, that's why a person has to be careful. That's why I don't recommend you have to go to culinary school. You have to go to a Jewish culinary school, because if you go to a non-Jewish culinary school, they're going to ask you to cook meat and milk together, right, Nisha? We got to be careful. We got to tell them don't go to such a school. There are Jewish culinary schools that they don't do meat and milk. Most probably, tofu, whatever, non-dairy products, non-dairy creamers, whatever it is. So there's a violation of cooking meat and milk together. But not only did he cook this gid with milk, he cooked it on Yom Tov. So now he also violated the prohibition of cooking on Yom Tov in this one act. This one act of cooking, there's two sins that happen. He cooked meat and milk together. And he also cooked on Yom Tov.
Rabbi, he's allowed to cook on Yom Tov, Rabbi.
So the Gemara says he cooked on Yom Tov shalol l'tzorech. He cooked for no purpose, because he can't eat this. He can't eat this food because he had no purpose of this food is forbidden to eaten because it's basar b'chalav. Basar b'chalav, meat and dairy together, you're not allowed to eat. There's a prohibition of eating meat and milk together. So you cooked for no purpose. So if he cooked this gid and Yom Tov v'acholo, but not only did he cook it, he made another sin. What's the other sin that he did? He ate it. So now we have a couple more violations. You have a violation for eating meat and dairy. There's a violation. The Torah prohibits you to, one of the 6 or 13 mitzvahs, you're not allowed to go ahead and what? Cook meat and dairy together. There's another violation, you're not allowed to eat milk and meat together. So now he violated another violation for eating meat and dairy together. And another violation because this was a gid. The meat was also not kosher meat, in a sense. Why was it not kosher meat? Because the meat was a gid. It was a sciatic nerve, where there's a prohibition of eating a sciatic nerve. So that's another 2 violations. So now the Gemara's going to identify a 3rd violation. Now look, the Gemara's going to say there's a total of 5 violations that are happening here. What are the 5? So the Gemara identifies the 5. Loger chamesh. He gets 5 sets of lashes. Mishum ochel gid. He gets lashes because he ate the gid, the sciatic nerve, where the Torah says don't eat. He gets malchut because he cooked on Yom Tov, not for the purpose of Yom Tov. And by the way, you should know that the head of the allowance for you to cook on Yom Tov is for a Jew. And therefore, people need to also realize you're not allowed to invite a guest on Yom Tov that's not Jewish to your house to eat. Because if you invite the guest in the house to eat, you might be cooking for him. You might cook you don't have an allowance to cook for a non-Jew. And therefore you have to, I'm not telling you to invite a non-Jew to your house on Shabbat either as your Shabbat meal. But technically, regarding the concern of cooking, there is a halachic issue, independent of any social issues that you have to be aware of. But there's a halach, you're not allowed to invite the non-Jew to your house for a meal on Yom Tov because you might cook for him. But if the Yom Tov comes out on Shabbat, now you're not going to be cooking for him on Shabbat because it's Shabbat. So therefore, technically, that issue would not apply. That would be just a important point that people need to realize. Now, he gets lashes because of cooking the gid with milk. So that's another prohibition. He gets lashes for eating milk and meat together. So we have two on the cooking. The violation of cooking meat and eating together. The violation of cooking on Yom Tov, not for the need of Yom Tov. Two on the eating. He ate the gid. The gid is not kosher, and he ate meat and milk that was cooked together. And now number 5, the logeh. Now we're on page Chaf Beis Amud Aleph 22a. Mazel tov, mabruk. We're looking right away. We are getting closer to the finish line, everybody.
Yes.
We are moving very
Baruch
nicely.
Hashem.
The logeh mishum havara, and he gets lashes because of the violation of havara, of making a fire. Meaning the Gemara understands that he made the fire. How did he cook this pot? How did he cook this gid hanasher, this gid with the dairy? He made a fire. See, mishum havara. So the Gemara says, if it's true, now so for the violation of Yom Tov, you are giving 2 sets of lashes out of the 5 sets of lashes that we are giving here to the guy. 2 of the 5 have to do with Chaf Beis Amud Aleph 22a on the top of the page. 2 of the 5 have to do with violating Yom Tov.
Yom Tov.
What were the 2 of the 5 that had to do with Yom Tov? Cooking on Yom Tov and making a fire on Yom Tov. And you told me before that when it comes to Yom Tov, you told me Ein chiluk melachot Yom Tov. You told me you're not going to give multiple violations, multiple lashes for a person who violates multiple melachot, multiple acts that are forbidden on Yom Tov. So how could you go ahead? How could we count these as each one separately and give them lashes for this violation of making a fire on Yom Tov, and lashes for what? For cooking on Yom Tov, if you told me you don't give multiple sets of lashes for multiple violations of Yom Tov? That is the Gemara's question. Now, the obvious question on the Gemara is, that which we would say that you don't give multiple lashes for multiple violations of Yom Tov would seem to be something if you're doing one act. If you do one act, he went ahead, like the Gemara gave the story earlier. He plowed on Yom Tov, but he plowed a field that had seeds in it. So this act of plowing was, he violated 2 things. At the same time, in the one act, he plowed, and the one act, he sowed the ground, he helped the seeds grow.
2 sets.
There was 2 sins in one act. So when 2 sins happen in one act, so then we could say that we understand the concept that maybe there's no chidut. We don't find a ribui. We don't find a special pasuk to teach you that we're going to give you multi lashes for multi violations in one act. And we're not gonna give motivation. Good morning, Mr. Shatrit. Good to see you. But here, the Gemara's question is, on Yom Tov, you're not allowed, you know, we like we said, you could go ahead and you have a fire, pre-existing fire, and you want to go ahead and make you want to light the candles on Yom Tov. You take a pre-existing fire and you go ahead and you light from that pre-existing fire, you light the candles on Yom Tov. But if a person's going to go ahead and make a fire on Yom Tov, he's going to create a fire on Yom Tov, and he's making the fire for something that he's not allowed to eat. You see, the question will be the separate question. On Yom Tov, I'm not allowed to make a fire from scratch, correct? I can't scratch a match on Yom Tov. The question will be, is that the Torah allows me to cook on Yom Tov. The Torah allows me to go ahead and take a pre-existing fire and to light a candle from a pre-existing fire. To make a fire from scratch, we're not allowed to do. Is that biblically prohibited, min Torah, or is it rabbinically prohibited? That's something that could be looked into, but we're not allowed to do it. But the Gemara is saying, when the case of the Gemara is to make a fire from scratch for no purpose. That there's no question that there's a biblical prohibition to go ahead on Yom Tov. The case of the Gemara was a guy took meat and dairy together, and he cooked it and he made a fire to cook meat and dairy together. So not only he did a sin of cooking the meat and dairy together, which is a sin. Just the cooking itself is prohibited. You're not allowed to cook meat and dairy together, even though you don't plan on eating it, right? A person is a non-Jewish worker in the house and a maid, and the maid says she likes meat. She brings her own pot. She does her own pot in the house. If she ever, and I don't recommend that, but let's say she has her own pot. She does her own cooking. Again, I wouldn't recommend it because who knows if things flow over. And then she says, "Can you turn on the fire for me?" She says, "Can you turn on the fire for me?" The Torah prohibits you to turn on the fire to cook meat and dairy together, even though you have no plan on eating the meat and dairy. And we said that to Mr. Shatrit. We said earlier, if someone wants to become a chef, they have to go to a regular school will tell them to cook meat and dairy together. So you can't go to those schools to plan on being a chef. You would have to either tell them, you tell them your religious needs. I want to be a chef. I'm very talented, but I can't do it. I can only practice on things that have no meat and dairy together. I don't know if that's possible in the school.
Today they do that, Rabbi. They do that today.
There are Jewish culinary schools that are specifically because of this concern, right? Mr. Michael, Mr. Silverman, what were you saying?
They have now everybody, the dietary restrictions of people, the society today, they have you could cook only no vegan, no dairy.
Yeah, okay, because of all the different vegetarians and all these things.
Yeah.
So therefore, they have to make sure that the chef could. That's true. Very good. So the Gemara's question is, and the Gemara is saying, we're going to give him, if he makes a fire, and so he did one sin making the fire, and another sin because he cooked on Yom Tov. And the Gemara had a question. By Yom Tov, we said, if you do multiple violations in one act, let's say the Gemara said, if you plowed a field on Yom Tov, and in the field, he had already placed seeds in the field. So the seeds, now the plowing will help the seeds grow. So you did two sins in the one act.
It spreads them.
You plowed, you covered the seeds with the
ground. You mixed them, you turned them.
Right, so you did the violation of plowing on Yom Tov and the violation of planting on Yom Tov. So the Gemara says we're going to give only one set of lashes for that multi-violation. So the Gemara says over here, when it comes to the fire, why should they give the guy two sets of violations for making a fire and for cooking on Yom Tov? We should give him only one set of lashes because on Yom Tov we said we're going to only give one set of lashes for multi-violations. The commentators asked, but that's only if the multi-violation happens simultaneously at one time. But if you made the fire separately and you went ahead and you cooked separately, so they're two different acts. So that's why you should get two different sets of lashes. So what's bothering the Gemara? Why are you getting two separate set of lashes for the making the fire and another set of lashes? Again, it's only if they're warned. There's no lashes. We don't give a guy malkut. The court only hits a guy if he's warned. He's warned. He does it
Two
intentionally.
eighteen by two
We'll
eighteen.
never hit. We don't touch a guy. We never hit a guy if he's not warned, right? We warned him. He knew what he was getting himself into. He got warned in front of witnesses. There was two witnesses to verify it. So what is the Gemara saying that he's going to get two sets of? So the Gemara wants to know why is he getting two sets of lashes? It's obvious, but he did two acts not simultaneously. Therefore, maybe he should get two sets of lashes. So one of the answers that is given here.
So Rabbi, what about like you just mentioned the kilayim? He turned over the dirt. He did kilayim, and he worked it with his animal. So there's three.
Right. So the Gemara says.
So, but they're all in the same act.
Very good. If you do, but they're all the same acts on different areas of the Torah. One is you're not allowed to plant mixed seeds together. One is you're not allowed to plow with two different animals together. You can't crossbreed. You can't take an ox and a donkey, tie them together, but those are different.
That's just like the kilayim. That's just like the kilayim,
right.
Rabbi. That's the life force of the kilayim.
Right. But when it comes to Yom Tov, Mr. Silverman, and specifically by Yom Tov, the Gemara says if multi-violations happen in one act, a cop, the cop gives you many tickets for one subject, gives you many tickets, right?
Good example.
You were speeding at the same time you didn't have your seatbelt on.
And you were on the phone.
And you were on the phone, right? You got a cell phone ticket, you got multiple violations. But Yom Tov, if you have multiple violations on Yom Tov, at the same act, you violated in Yom Tov within the family of Yom Tov. We'll only give him one set of lashes. You plowed the field, you planted the field in one act of moving the plow. We're going to give him one set of lashes. But if
Rabbi, the cooking, the gid and the halav, even during the week, it will be asur.
Right.
It's not only on Yom Tov, it's going to be asur.
Right,
excellent.
So that's why
the
Gemara.
What?
That's why probably we're going to rule that on Yom Tov you get only one set of lashes.
Yeah, but we're saying regarding there's a prohibition on Yom Tov calls. Don't do malacha on Yom Tov. Don't work on Yom Tov. Within that prohibition, there are many different ways a person could violate doing work on Yom Tov, right? One way to violate is by cooking on Yom Tov. One way you violated that is plowing on Yom Tov, planting on Yom Tov. So when the Gemara asks the question, how could you give him two sets of lashes for the making of the fire, one set of lashes, and another set of lashes for the cooking? So the Gemara means to say, if you did both at the same time, how do you do it at the same time? You put the pot of meat and milk on the stove, and then you make the fire. You make the fire and then when the second you make that fire, when you make the fire under that pot, at that moment, you're violating two sins. You made a fire, you put on the fire, right? Nowadays, very easy. You put on the fire. That putting on the fire, you did two sins. One sin is you made a fire, and the second sin is that fire is going to be cooking the food. So being that they're both happening simultaneously, it's not that I made the fire now, and I went ahead and I cooked the food 5 minutes later. I did the fire and the cooking at the same time. So if the fire and the cooking was done at the same time, that's why they should not get two sets of lashes. Because the Gemara says when it comes to Yom Tov, if you do one act, two violations in the one act, the cops give you multiple tickets. But on Yom Tov, Hashem says we'll only give you one set of lashes for doing those two sins. No one should ever violate the Yom Tov. We'll continue tomorrow. And thank you, Mr. Shitrit, again for joining us.
Rabbi.
And have a beautiful day, everybody.
Have a great day, Rabbi.
Great day.
Bye-bye. Great day. Yeah, all the best, everybody. Yeah, today was Yehuda. Thank you very much. Netana, thank you so much. Have a great day. Netana, did I tell you about February 24th? What did you say? Yeah, not this Shabbat, the following Shabbat. He's going to be there. Yehuda's going to be there. Netana, could you reach out to your friends? Okay, we love. Could you be in touch because we want to get the momentum going. Nisim went, but he was single. Right, Nisim? Shabbat Yeshiva. Okay, great.
He told me maybe
Dave, have a great day.
Toby was originally gonna go to a bachelor's party, but I think they're moving that. They might be able to come.
Which
Kobe,
was
Ko- Kobe Kohanim.
Okay, great. We have to be on top of it.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk about
Yeah,
them
the
today.
job is to turn the maybe into a yes.
Exactly.
That's the job.
Updating. it.
Ilya, maybe Ilya will come. No, you're running, you have your own Shabbos. No, next Shabbos, 24th. You're there? Shabbos Yeshiva. You told me you're hosting, you know. You're a busy man busy with good things, thank God. I said you're busy with good things.